Hello students, myself Vijayalakshmi Sadlapur, Senior Grade Lecturer, Government Polytechnic Vijaypura, Department of Collegiate and Technical Education. I welcome you for a session on one of the graded exercises related to your C programming lab of third semester. The program which we are going through in this session is addition of two matrices using pointers. This is a content flow we have. We shall go through the algorithm and the flow chart and program related to the addition of matrices using the pointers. We'll go through the execution of the program using the Turbo C. Later, we will have some of the multiple choice questions for the structures we have used in this program. Before starting with the actual program, as we have used pointers and pointers to pointers in the program, it becomes necessary to just rewind about what is a pointer and what is a array of pointers. Okay, so I'll just go through the points here. See here, I have declared a variable a of the type data type integer. Okay, and I have assigned the value as 44. I have initialized it with the value of 44. So whenever we are going to declare any of the variable, one particular memory location will be allotted in your compiler, in your C. Okay, so here for this memory at a particular memory, as soon as I declare a variable as a, it is going to fix one memory location for it. Okay, and whatever value we are going to assign, that will be stored in that particular memory location. Okay, so here I have declared integer a and I have initialized the value as 44. So here the memory location for a is fixed and you're going to write the value which is assigned for a. Okay, this is the simple declarations what we will have. Now, when I go for a pointer, so if I write star b, it is nothing but I have declared b as a pointer. Okay, here b is the integer pointer which points to an integer. Now, how this memory location is taken now? B is a pointer which we have declared. So star b is nothing but it is being declared as a pointer to as an integer. Now, the third statement is b is equal to and a. And is nothing but address of a. Now, b is assigned the value of address of a. See the difference. Here it is declared as a pointer. Here it is just the what? We are assigning the address of a to b. So here in this thing, what is happening? B is pointing to a or it is storing the address of a. Okay, it stores the address of a. Now suppose when we have declared it, I said that it occupies a fixed memory location. So suppose that memory location is 1000. Okay, so here the address of a is stored. So here the value will be 1000. Okay, now if I see what is star of b is nothing but it is pointing to the b is pointing to the address and star of b is nothing but the content of a. So that will be your again 44. So this is how your pointers is going to work. Okay, now if I declare the array to a pointer. So if I have initialized an array of 4 elements 10, 20, 30 and 40. So this will be the 0th element, first element, second element and the third element. Okay, so it will be what? P of 0, P of 1, P of 2 and P of 3. So if I declare the pointer P of 4, okay, I've initialized the number of elements to be 4 here, then what will happen here? As we have taken the star, it is going to have the whatever address location. So a of 0 is 10 and its address location is what? This is one address location. Okay, same way a of 1 will be nothing but 20 at this particular address location. So now p of 0 is pointing to this location, p of 1 to this, p of 3 to and p of 3 to this location. So this way we are going to use the array pointers for the arrays. Now we have used one more interesting concept in the program, that is pointer to pointer. Okay, so what we say is whenever I am going to declare the pointer is going to point to the any of the memory location, isn't it? So that any of the memory location can also be a pointer. Now, like in the previous example, we said that it is going to store the memory location of the integer which we have declared. So in the same way, instead of an integer, it can be a pointer also. Okay, so that is what we are showing in this example. See here we have a number 50 which is whose address, okay, whose address is stored using the pointer p, okay. And now p is at a particular address. See, that will also be having an address. The pointer is also having an address. So this pointer I am going to store in a p2. Got it? So here pointer is pointed to a pointer. Hmm? So here this p is storing the address of the variable number, and p2 is storing the address of the pointer p. Okay, so this is how we are going to use. This is used for us in our matrices to trace with the different elements. Okay, different the addresses of the different elements. So we are using the pointer to pointer. So this is the basic concept about how we go for the matrix addition. So when we declare the two matrices, we need to say that the sizes should be same. Now how the addition starts? 1 is added with 9, 2 is, and it is stored as the first element. Okay, 1, the first element of matrix A, the first element of matrix B is stored in the first element of matrix of the resultant. In the same way, the second element added with the second element of matrix 2, it is stored at the second memory location, second location of the resultant matrix, and so on. So this is how it's very simple compared to your multiplication. The addition is going to take place. Okay. Lastly, these additions will be shown in the resultant matrix. Okay. So how to add? See, the resultant of I and j. See, it is all the same subscripts we are having. So I, 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 j, j, and j. That is nothing but you are going to point out to that particular location itself. Either it can be 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. For the next element, it will be what? 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 1. That is, as we are seeing here, say this will be what? 0, 0. What is at the position of 0, 0? 9 is also at the position of 0, 0. The resultant is also at the position of 0, 0. Okay. Now next, if you go for 2, 2 is at the position of what? 0, 1. I is equal to 0, j is equal to 1. 8 is at the position of again 0, 1. And 2 plus 8, that is 10, is also at the position of 0, 1. So that's what we are saying here. The resultant of ij is equal to the element of matrix 1 of ij and the element of matrix 2 present in your ij. Okay. Now instead of using these subscripts, we can also use the pointers. Okay. So how we use the pointers? See, the resultant of I plus j. So this is, see, we need to keep on incrementing, isn't it? So this is 0. Then the next element is to be stored at the next by incrementing that address location. Okay, so that address, this address location is stored in a pointer, and the next pointer points when we want to increment, we use again a pointer to this where we go to the incrementation, okay, of that particular subscript. So the same thing is shown here. The resultant of I plus j, this is a pointer. For this again we use a pointer. Okay, so this pointer is going for the actual, the last resultant memory location where the added element is to be stored. The same way, say matrix of 1, this is, say this is the initial value, okay, that is added with the value present in I, and this result is added with j. This is present in the pointer. You are going to use it with a pointer, and we want to go for the next element, then again we are using the pointer to a pointer. So in this way we use the pointer notations to go for the sum of two matrices. Now with this knowledge, we will go through the algorithm and the flowchart. So algorithm is nothing but the step-by-step procedure to write a program. So all the steps, whatever we have seen till now, we will be just placing it in terms of the algorithm. So this is the algorithm what we have. So first we will take the input for the matrix 1 and 2. Then we are going to check whether the number of rows and columns of both the matrices are equal. Then next we use the two for loops to get the elements. Okay, matrix 1 and matrix 2. Okay, because it is a two-dimensional matrix, we need to loop inside a loop. Okay, we need a loop inside a loop, that is a nested loop, in order to get the elements, matrix elements, and also in order to write the matrix elements back to your console. Okay, so here we are going for loop inside the loop, that is one is for rows and the other is for the columns, and we are going to get the elements of matrix 1. In the same way for matrix 2, and the resultant matrix is also going to use for the same loop itself. Okay. Later, to display this resultant matrix, again we use the nested loop. So here, how we are going through is, let us take that we are having 9 elements. So if it's a 9 element, then it will be what, a 3 by 3 matrix. We will do it using the for loop. Then next, how we are going to do, first we'll start I with 0 and j is 0. So the initialized is what, it is initialized for 0 0, as already I have explained previously. Now next I want to go for the second element. So this should remain same, I should remain same. Okay, I should hold the value of 0, and we have to keep on incrementing the value of j. So the second element will be stored at what, 0 and 1. To get the third element, it will be what, I still remains 0, and we are going to increment the value of j. So now it becomes what, 0 and 2. Okay, now when it again you go to increment, then this condition is going to be false. J should be less than 3, because we go for what, 0 1 and 2. Okay, when it comes to be 3, then it becomes false, so it comes out of that, and again we keep on incrementing. We keep j is equal to 0. Now we have taken I is equal to 1, we take I is equal to 1, and we again continue to go for the next row. Now we have completed in these steps when I is equal to 0. So here when I is equal to 0, this is for row 0. When I, in the same way, I repeat these steps. Okay, we repeat these steps by keeping I is equal to what, I is equal to here 1. The same way we repeat it for I is equal to 2. Again lastly, when again I is becoming less than until I is less than 3, we have to continue. Once it becomes equal to 3, then it becomes false, we come out of that loop. Okay, the same thing, increment the values of I holds again 0, I becomes 1 now. Okay, it was 0 earlier, it becomes 1. Again you go for j is equal to 0 to 2, the same steps are repeated. So similarly what we do is, we are going to take all the values from uh, the element 0 to 8, because it's a 9 element array matrix. So we start from 0 to what, your last element, which will be your 8th element. Okay, so this is how we are going to take the inputs. Then later to add, we use the same concept. So we add with the same subscripts, and we are again going to store it in that resultant matrix with the same subscript. Okay, so this is done for all the 9 elements. And finally we are going to print that matrix, okay, at the output by using again the nested loop. Now we will see what is a flowchart. So flowchart is whatever we have written in the algorithm, we represent it graphically, or directly also you can go for the flowchart, which is a graphical representation, which makes us more easy to understand the step-by-step approach of your program. Okay, so this is a flowchart what we are having. We first read the values, okay, of the matrices. We check the condition that it is greater than 0, that is the rows and columns should be greater than 0, and your values should be equal. Then later we are going to read the values. Once it is true, if it is false, again we will ask to re-enter the values. Then later for I is equal to 0 to m minus 1, as already I have explained in the program, if it is true, then we keep on incrementing the values of j until your j becomes equal to your q. Okay, once it becomes equal to q, again we are going for the next value, and so on. So whenever it is true, we are going to write the added values for your c. Okay, so this whole thing continues until this value becomes false. So once this becomes false, we write the value of your c. Okay, so this is the concept we are using. And see students, I have not written the for loops, I have not shown the for loops for reading the elements and writing the outputs. Okay, because it just increases the size of the flowchart. We will need to have the nested loops here and at this point also. Okay, so that can be considered. So here is the program. So in this program, I have first I am going to take it to different stage wise. The first stage, we are here going to take the order of the matrices and checking the order condition. Okay, so if this condition that all the order is greater than 0, and if the rows is matching with the columns, then it is going to take for the next stage. Otherwise, If it is false, again you will be asked to enter the order of the both of the matrices. Then later, once uh, the conditions in the do while loop are satisfied, you take the orders of the both the matrices, and later now we start taking the elements. So in order to take the elements, I am using the pointer. Okay, so pointer of a of I plus j, because as already I have explained, you need to go from one value to the next value. That is, you are going to go from one continuous value to the next value memory location here. So that's why we can easily do it by using this pointers. Okay, then later, in order to print, I use a pointer to a pointer. This also I have explained while explaining the algorithm. Then later, in order to display the program, we again use your nested for loops to display your result in your console. So this could be the output here. I have just taken some simple values, and the resultant sum is shown here. See, 11. So as I said, 0 element 0 comma 0th element of A is added with 0 comma 0th element of B. So 11 plus 1 is 12. Okay. The same way, 22 plus 2 is 24. In the same way, here all the 9 elements are getting added up, and you are going to store it in the matrix C. Now let us go for the execution of the program using Turbo C here. Now I have opened the program in Turbo C. So the steps to execute a given program in Turbo C is what? You first write the program, you save it with extension .c. Okay. To save the program, you go for here save. Okay, go for file and you go get the save option here. Otherwise, you can also use the shortcut key F2. Once you save the program, next step is to compile the program. So in order to compile the program, either you go through this menu, or also you can use a Alt F9. So once the program is compiled correctly, then we go for the running of the program. So to run the program, you can use the shortcut keys Control F9. So here it's asking to enter the order of matrix A. Okay, now let me take a simple order to understand the program easily. I'll take a 2 by 2 matrix for A, and for B also I'll take a 2 by 2 matrix. Now enter the elements. See, I'll just enter the elements as what, if I just take it as 1, 2, 1, 1, 1 and 1. Just for simplicity, for the simple cross-checking of your program, I'm taking the simple inputs here. Then I'll enter the matrix B. Okay, let me take it as 2. So now 1 plus 2 is 3, isn't it? 1 plus 2 is 3, which is the value of all the elements, because I have entered the same values for the matrices. See students, whenever you are executing the program, first you cross check your program by going through your simple inputs. Then later on, you can go for, once you feel that your result is correct, then you go for the bigger values of your inputs, and also cross check it manually and with your result which you are getting on your compiler. Okay, so this is the way how we are going to execute your program. Okay, so once we got with the execution of the program, now let me just go through some of the simple MCQs, interesting MCQs. So the first question here is using the go to, okay, inside the for loop. It is equivalent to continue, break, return, or none of the above. If I use a go to program, go to statement in your loop, for loop, okay, then it is equivalent of using what? It is equivalent of using none, because see, go to cannot be used inside your for loops. Okay, and these you can use the continue statement or the break to statement. Return to statement is used for what? You can use this return to statement whenever you want to come out of your subroutines and all those things. Okay, so go to, we usually don't go for using it inside the for loop, so it is not equivalent to using any of these. Okay, if a switch feature is used, then if the switch feature is used, then default case must be present. Default case, if used, should be the last case. Default case, if used, can be placed anywhere. None of the above. So in the switch statement, if I'm using the switch statement, if I'm going for, then there is a question on the default where it should be present. Okay, it should be present in what it can be used, and the default if used. See, the default is always optional in your switch statements. Okay, in your switch control structure, default case can be kept as optional, and if it is used, you can place it anywhere. Okay, because the default, when your compiler comes across the default statement, it makes out that this is to be executed at the last. It will not execute whenever you are placing it at the middle. Okay, after completing all the cases, only then it goes for the default case. So place it anywhere, the compiler, it doesn't make any difference. Which of the following comments about the for loop are correct? Using a break is equivalent to using a go to that jumps to the statements immediately following the loop. Okay, so here uh, we are saying that you can use a break, it is equivalent to using the go to. Then continue is is used to bypass the remaining of the passes of the loop. If comma operator is used, then the value returned is the value of the right operand, all of the above. So what can be the answer here? Just think over. Which of the following comments about the for loop? We are speaking here about the for loop. About the for loop is true. Okay. So we can go for any of the statements. All the statements are true here. Next, in the context of break and continue statements, which is the best statement? See, break and continue can be used in for, while, do while, and for, while, do while, loop, okay, body, and the switch body. Break can be used in the for, while, and do while loop, but only break can be used in the switch. So in the first option, what is saying? We can use break, continue, and be used for while. Okay, sorry. Break and continue can be used for, while, do while, and switch. Hmm? Break and continue can be used in for, while, and do while, but break can be used, but only break can be used in the switch. Okay, break and continue can be used in the for, while, and do while loops, and also besides that, continue and break can be used in the switch and the if else. Break can be used in the for, while, do while, loop bodies. So which amongst this is the correct one? See, break can be used in the switch, okay, not in any others. So we can say that your option B is correct. Okay, so continue can be used in the loop body only, and break can be used in the switch body only. So that's why your answer B is correct. The continue statement cannot be used with. Again, it's related to the same previous question. The continue statement, it cannot be used with what? The switch statement, because in the continue we can use the break statement and not with the switch statement, and continue will be used to skip the statements and go back to the back. Now, the keyword can be used for coming out of the recursion. Which keyword is used to come out? Okay. We are using the return. So as already said, we are going for the return statement whenever you want to come from the subroutine or the recursions which are occurring. Go to can be used to jump from main to within a function. Whether it is true, false, it may be, or you cannot say. See, just go through the question. Go to can be used to jump from the main to within a function. It is what your go to statement in the C program, it is going to provide the unconditional jumps. Okay, so whenever we use the go to statement, we need a label. It goes to the particular labeled statement, go to that particular labeled statement. So it is a false statement. Which of the following is invalid for the if else statement? Yes, here we cannot use the condition if inside a if. Okay, so the condition whatever we are using for the if, it cannot be again a if statement. So that's why this is false. The switch statement, it accepts which of these? Int, character, long. It is going to use all of them. Which loop is guaranteed to execute at least once? for, while, do while. See, whenever we go for the for statement, it first only checks the what it first checks the condition, then enters the loop. The same thing happens with the while, but in the do while, once at least you are going to execute your loop. So your answer is a C. Okay, so these were some of the questions related to some of the C structures, okay, C programming structures. The references to develop this content I have used is Bala Goswami and Yashwant Kanitkar. And students, this is the team. We are working for the development of your C programming lab content at the state level. Thank you.